When we're talking about search parameters, there are really only two things that we're actually looking at least initially. First off, how hot the girl is in her pictures, duh. And secondly, how high the match percentage is. Now, since we've taken the time to actually craft our questions in a somewhat thoughtful way, this number is actually going to have some bearing on whether or not the girl is going to be compatible with you. And by be compatible, I mean have sex. Okay, so one thing I noticed with the match percentage is there seems to be kind of a sweet spot, for me at least, between say 70 and 90%. If you go below 70, you run the risk of showing up and the chick's like a full prude. Above 90, however, the woman will often turn out to be batshit insane. And yes, I know what that says about me. But basically, we'll be way too similar and we'll just kind of grate on each other's nerves. Now, of course, these match questions aren't like some gospel written stone by any means. I mean, I hooked up with girls who I had as low as like a 30 or 40% match with. And on the other hand, on the 90 plus range, I've shown up and they're just like the coolest person on earth, okay? With those really high match percentages, I found that you're either gonna love her or you're gonna hate each other. Absolutely. Like, there's no in between. But the point is, don't disqualify any girl from your message blast solely on the basis of the match percentage. If you find her super attractive, then, by all means, send the damn message. However, be aware of that mismatch when you're prioritizing your leads later on down the road. So, again, when we're sending out messages, I just called it a message blast for good reason. We want to send large amounts of messages out in mass. I mean, I'm talking maybe 50 to 200 at a time. I mean, hell, maybe even more. Okay, remember, volume is one of the hallmarks of the program, and that volume is what's going to make the whole system viable, right? The need for volume, furthermore, is exacerbated by the fact that we're only going after hot girls, because the hot girls, their response rate is likely going to be a bit lower, and that's simply due to the deluge of messages that they're getting on a daily basis. Now, one little note on volume here. A lot of people ask, well, why not use a bot, right? Like some kind of scripted bot or something. The thing is, number one, OkCupid can tell when you're using a bot, okay? In fact, when McKinley did his research, he actually had to tweak his bots to make them mimic human usage of the site in like tempo and speed because they just kept getting banned, right? So that's one consideration. Secondly, even if you could make it simulate a person and not get banned, even then the bot cannot make the judgment call on quality, okay? And I do not want to be wading through hundreds of fucking trolls from the land of Mordor, okay? That defeats the purpose. Until the day arrives where the bot can actually determine whether or not you would find the girl attractive, well, it's simply not going to be a viable option, all right? We have to do volume in order to achieve the results we want, okay? And that volume requires automation to be executed in a cost-effective, and by that I mean time-effective manner. But somebody's got to be at the controls. So essentially what we're trying to do here is we're trying to strike a balance between automation and volume. And this, of course, this is the same reason why I don't like the Tinder swipe all right strategy. And it's interesting because, I hear people say, well, I got the Tinder auto-liker, and it likes every girl for me. I think that shit is literally like fucking retarded. Okay, it's fucking retarded. In fact, if you use the Tinder auto-liker, I think you're almost as retarded as me for just flubbing that line. Maybe more, okay? So it's funny because I was having this discussion with a student on boot camp once, not long ago. And after the program, I decided to sit at home in front of my computer. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna mirror my phone to my computer here and like do a screen capture. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just simply gonna swipe right and continue doing so until I stop getting matches. And this was the result. It's funny because that clip is completely unedited. Like I showed that to a friend of mine who's like a video producer. He's like, oh, clearly you edited that together. That is completely unedited, all right? The reason he couldn't believe that is because it was such an alien experience to him. That is certainly not the average guy's experience on Tinder. I showed that to a girlfriend of mine. She's like, oh yeah, welcome to my every single day on Tinder. Now the thing is, why do I have that reaction? Well, again, I've got my pictures dialed and I've got my profile, as it were, on Tinder, just that blurb, but I have myself very, very dialed. And the more that you get things dialed, the more that you're just gonna start to get good reactions. So again, all things considered, that kind of strategy is gonna be more of a time suck. I would literally spend more time going through and deleting the trolls than it would take for me to actually take a second and look at the girl and decide whether or not I'm attracted to her. So again, like I said, all things considered, it's more of a time suck. Striking a balance between systemization, automation, and volume is what we're after here. Now, of course, the other hallmark of the program is gonna be what? Screening. And this screening process begins before we even start sending out the messages. And what we're gonna be doing is putting these girls through a tiered system of screens. A tiered system of screens. Before we even begin the search, we're gonna be applying what I call the 0 or positive screen. And this is gonna consist of your profile, your pics, your initial message, and your overall tone. This in and of itself is gonna screen out girls who would not be down to hook up with you in the first place. Remember, you are showing a highly positive, polished version of yourself, but it's also gotta be completely full honest. So ideally, you've set everything up so it's a what you see is what you get situation for the girl. There's not gonna be any surprises for her when you show up on the date. It's basically gonna be exactly what she expected, so she's going into it fully ready. Okay, so you're being polarizing, but again, not for the sake of being polarizing. And remember, any girl who agrees to go on a date with General fucking Durr has pretty much already made her decision. And now, when I go on the date, it's simply on me to not fuck up, right? So like I said before, back in the day, I did have a more pandering profile, kind of like, what kind of guy would a girl like to go out with? And yes, I would get more girls to meet up, but then guess what? They wouldn't fuck. So this 0 screen, if you will, is in fact a very real and integral part of the process. Although the effects aren't usually visible to the naked eye, I guess you'd say. Although sometimes they are. It is very possible that you might actually receive messages from women without even doing a single search, without even lifting a finger, right? They're on the site, they just see you and they're like, oh, hell yeah, I want some of that, and like, boom, okay? And be aware that there are in fact several ways that you can actually go about increasing your chances of having women send you messages out of the blue, completely unsolicited. So let's take a look at a couple of those right now. First off, is the quick match and profile rating. If you go and you rate girls' profiles and you like them on the quick match feature, what that's gonna do, it's not only gonna boost your views on the site, but if you both like each other, it's gonna send you an email automatically. Another thing you can do is to just show up in her visitors list. Simply visiting girls that you have a high match percentage with and letting them see the visit will often make them message you first, unsolicited. So hence, I'll always let them see my initial visit, but I turn it off for subsequent visits if I'm creeping their profile. So you can choose to browse anonymously, or you can choose to turn it off. So like I said, when I first visit a girl's profile, if I like her, I'm gonna favorite her, I'm gonna add her to my favorites, I'm gonna like her, okay, and I'm also going to let her see that I visited, all right? Now, so another thing is this. On OkCupid or Tinder, which is basically the same thing as far as this is concerned, if you get messaged first by the girl, you can cut a lot of the crap and you can go for the close much, much more quickly. I mean, that's not to say that there's a lot of crap to begin with. After all, the program does highly emphasize being as concise as possible in our communication. But still, you want to treat it as an encounter in real life where you're in the club and you just kind of lock eyes with the girl and you just know immediately it's on. Like, damn. So in that case, don't fuck around. Don't do any weird shit. Simply suss out the logistics and go for the close as soon as possible. So anyway, after the 0 screen, we're gonna go to the first real round of screening. And when I begin my search, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open the Browse Matches page and I'm gonna get down to work. Now, OkCupid actually allows you to choose from a wide variety of search criteria. However, in my case, there's only a couple parameters that I'm actually paying attention to here. And the first of these is gonna be her location. Generally, I don't recommend going out with girls who don't actually live in your city. It's just kind of too much of a hassle at the end of the night. She's like, oh, I have to catch the train, etc. Okay, so you might have to make a judgment call here. I mean, for example, I live in San Francisco, but I might message somebody who lives in Oakland or South City if I find her exceptionally attractive. But again, make sure that you factor this in down the line when you're actually prioritizing your leads and scheduling your dates for the week. Okay, so then after that, I'm going to go into the advanced menu and I'm going to choose looking for, and I'm going to eliminate those girls that are simply looking for long-term dating. So that means I'm selecting either new friends, short-term dating, and or casual sex. Now, OkCupid gives you the option to choose for non-monogamous, but I personally find that that drastically reduces the dating pool there. And again, I live in San Francisco, a decidedly progressive city, yet if I do select non-monogamous, it'll only bring back like a handful of girls. Okay. The next thing I do is I eliminate non-drinkers. That's just me personally. Furthermore, if you have the A-list, there's some advanced options you can select. The most important one being the ability to search by attractiveness. This is also a fairly well-known fact that OkCupid only will show you matches of a similar attractiveness to your own rating. So if you're just like some dude, there's a pretty good chance that it's not even going to show you the 5-star girls unless you've paid for A-list. Now, personally, I'd go ahead and say that you should probably get the A-list feature anyway, simply because of the increased message box space. Otherwise, what you're going to be doing is you're going to spend a fair amount of time actually going through and deleting old messages, which is fine, I guess, if you're not like me and you need to save them for posterity, like for this program. But if you're some fucking cheap ass and you still want to see the hotties, however, there is in fact a workaround, and that's to get a fake profile. Okay, so what you do is you make a profile of like a hot bisexual girl. And I'm not talking like some porn star here or anything like that. Just believable, like a very cute college student or something. And she's going to get shitloads of messages, but you'll never even look at that. Unless, of course, you want to have a nice laugh or some more examples of what not to do. But you're simply going to use her account to scope out the hotties that the site usually hides from ugly fucks like yourself. And you can skip down the road saying, fuck the police. All right? So anyway, after this, the first screen begins in earnest. I'm usually going to choose to order the search results by match percentage, and then I'm going to scroll down. Okay, so you're looking for any girls that have a colored bar, and that's going to be green, yellow, or red below the little profile box. And this indicates that you haven't messaged her yet. And at this stage, I'm literally just looking at the picture and thinking, is she hot? That's it. And I'm going to go through them, I'm going to pop them open on separate tabs across the top by either holding down Control and selecting, or if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel, clicking with the scroll wheel. And the thing is, after you've opened a bunch of them up top, right? You popped a bunch of them up top. I'm going to go through and I'm going to close them as needed if they don't get past this screen. Okay? So I'm going to be skimming for anything that I might consider a red flag that I can just kind of catch at a glance, skimming the profile. And for me, this might be stuff like veganism, shit like I am passionate about social justice, etc. And when you're looking at these profiles, it can be really easy to get tempted and actually like start to like a girl in particular, like, oh, she looks great. Oh yeah, right? But you can't do that. You got to divorce all emotions from this, especially at this stage. It's got to be like a systematic, logical thing. Follow me? Good. So as I'm going to go through, I'm going to open the girls' individual pages and look at them. And I'm also simultaneously, I'm looking in the sidebar for anything that catches my eye. Like here, you'll see it'll be like, you might like, and it'll show like, 8 other girls here. And then down on this side, it's going to say stuff like similar users. So again, even in these little tiny thumbnails, I'll be popping these up as I go along. I'm closing, I'm popping. It's very dynamic, okay? And so I'm getting, again, all these open across the top. And I've got them all open across the top. I'll do like 50 across the top. I'll do so many that you can't, the tabs are like tiny. Like, I'm going to have 50 across the top. You won't even be able to read the text on the tabs, just like little X's. So once I'm satisfied with that, I got a lot of them open, say 20 to 50. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to go through, I'm going to blast out the fucking message, all right? I'm going to just blast out my messages. Then I wait. And once the replies begin to come in, now we move along to the second screen. So now you're going to look more in depth at the profiles, and you're going to spend some actual time perusing them. Okay, I'm going to check their dietary preferences. I'm going to read the actual profile text from start to finish, looking for red flags, or conversely, things that I find awesome, right? Like, oh, this chick's really cool. But again, be careful here that you don't get too invested because of this. Like, oh my God, we're so meant to be. Because again, at this stage, you might be setting yourself up for emotional pain, okay, which is simply unacceptable at this level of volume that we're working, okay? I mean, look, you can invest with the girl after you hooked up with her. So another thing to do is to take a look at the answers to her match questions. And how you do that is you're going to click on the little tab that says the two of us. If you have a low match percentage, it's going to say y'all got issues. So just click on that and then look at the questions, specifically those relating to sex and dating, and it will actually allow you to select those. And just, go through them, read her answers, and just see if there are any red flags there as well. Like, for example, one red flag for me will be like, one of the questions is, how long would it typically wait for you to have sex with someone after you meet them? Like, how many dates? If she says like 6+ dates, red flag, canceled. So we're also now going to be taking a good, long, hard look at her pictures. That's what she said. So going into this, understand there are a lot of ways that girls are going to hide their flaws or even straight up fabricate shit in the pictures. So as you're searching and we're going through this screen and we're looking at the pictures, you really need to apply a critical eye. And the main thing here is just don't kid yourself because you'd like her to look a certain way and she's replying to you. All right? Go into it with eyes wide open and understand what you're going to be getting into when you go on the date. So here are a few of the most common tricks that girls are going to employ to kind of hide or fabricate things. Let's take a look. So first off, the most common thing you're going to see among older women is they're going to use pictures that are simply out of date. Now, obviously, this is going to be somewhat difficult to tell, but you kind of want to look at it. Look if their like fashion looks old. Like, for example, they're wearing like some Livestrong bracelet or something, or if their hair looks like all permed out or something. A lot of times you're going to see a digital picture taken of an old printed photograph, and it's you can really clearly tell. It's like, again, her hair looks like she's like cast extra on the Facts of Life or Full House or something. It's like, yeah, nice hair, yo. A lot of times older women will also use very artistic black and white shots, or sometimes you'll see shots that are just like really, really blown out, like the whites are really blown out and it's really, really contrasty. And what that will do is it's actually going to reduce the appearance of wrinkles. So if you see a pic where her face is really flashed out, you might show up and she's going to have wrinkles, okay? Again, not saying that that's bad in and of itself. I got fucking wrinkles galore, right? But again, be aware of that. Sometimes along a similar vein, most of their pictures will be them wearing sunglasses for this same purpose. And sometimes the picture is just really shitty quality, again, taken on a potato, and that is also going to be a red flag for trying to hide something. Sometimes they'll mix and match these strategies. So if like every single picture of the girl, if she's somewhat older and every single picture of her is either a contrasty close-up, or she's wearing sunglasses and it's close-up, or it's like an old digital pic, or if there is a quality pic of her, it's like taken from far away where you can't really see details in the face. Again, you might show up and she might look a little bit older than she's portraying herself to look. Okay, so of course after that we then have the classic famous so-called fat girl angle shot that girls have been using since the dawn of MySpace. And this is of course where she's like, taking it from this angle, like, right, every single picture's like that. Okay, so little pro tip here, if she's got absolutely no body shot, if every single picture of her is just a close-up of her face, like from some weird angle, just assume that she's gonna be kind of chubby, okay? So things to look for here, look at the neck fat, look at the fat on the upper arms, and that's gonna give you more of an idea of what you're really working with here. Again, I'm not fat shaming, Lord knows I've gone out with plenty of fat girls, but again, just be aware of what you're getting into, okay? So sometimes the picture is going to tell you things about their personality that are going to be red flags in and of themselves. And a big one here is if literally all of her shots are group shots with her friends. This suggests to me that she's not necessarily going to be the most independent person, and or the friends are just going to be crawling all over her at all times. It might be difficult to get this girl to actually meet up with you. Or if she does, she will often insist that you meet her at some kind of pre-existing function that she happens to be attending with her friends. I've seen it happen with these group shots girls time and time again. So that's another thing to be aware of. And then going further, then you just got shit that's just personally annoying. Okay, for me, it's mustaches. You know, a lot of times you'll see this trend where the girls are like holding a fake mustache on their finger, or they're holding some kind of mustache, like mustaches. It's just personally annoying to me. Another one for me is duck face. That's basically like, with her. Right, I don't care how hot the girl is. If she's making that fucking face, I'm probably not gonna like her on a personal level when I get out and meet her. And then, of course, sometimes you have combination. You got, duck face and mustache together. I call that duck stash. I just actually made that up right now. I'm a fucking genius. So after all that, if you still want to go out with her, fine. But again, make sure you're going into the date with realistic expectations, or you might find yourself watching the door on the date the whole time, wishing you'd either gone out with someone else or just fucking stayed home to watch Game of Thrones. Okay, so when you're screening the girls, you need to be fucking ruthless about it. When you look at their pictures, really ask yourself, would I really be enthusiastic about having sex with this girl? Right? Is that like nose bend gonna make me feel weird every time I look at it? What about that like little snaggle tooth? Okay, is that gonna bother me? Do I already have one of these? In other words, you already have are you dating a girl who's like the same type of girl, right? Who looks essentially the same. So again, you ask yourself, is this an upgrade? Right? So be fucking ruthless here. Full buyer frame, full emotional disconnect, at least at first, right? Execute the program. Now, as a side note, on Tinder, you're gonna have little or no information to go on from her profile as to what she's like. So it's important to do screening in the message thread before you get her number, before you go out with her. And the way that I do this is I will actually ask her 3 questions. I'll say, hey, so tell me about yourself. Do you drink, smoke, have tattoos? Now, again, my reasons for this are as follows. If the girl doesn't drink, then we're probably gonna have a miserable time on the date. I mean, I'm probably not even gonna go out with her, period. Again, that's just my personal preference. I don't do coffee date. Again, beer's been getting ugly people laid since the dawn of the Egyptian pharaohs. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, if she smokes, she pokes. That's an old saying from Confucian times. And if she has tattoos, I mean, I know in this day and age, it's not like, some radical thing like, your grandma, like, oh my, she has a tattoo, she's a loose chippy or something like that, right? But, it probably speaks to the fact that she's at least a little bit more open-minded than maybe the average person who doesn't have a tattoo. So again, this isn't gonna like tell everything about her, but it's gonna at least give me an idea that she's gonna be kind of more open-minded, more of a fun person, quote unquote. And by fun, I mean, maybe a little more promiscuous. Again, it's just one way to kind of try to figure it out, because otherwise you get zero insight into what they're like off Tinder. So that's worked for me. Now, one thing that you want to be aware of when you're actually searching and messaging the girls is what I like to call the eyes too big for the stomach syndrome, right? Yes, it is possible to send out too many messages. Now, at first, when you're kind of just getting the hang of the system, yeah, I definitely recommend sending out hundreds at a time in order to maximize your returns. However, once you kind of begin to get your profile and your pics more and more dialed, and you really hone your first message down to something that's truly killer, then your response rate is going to increase. And this can actually start to become an actual problem. Now, the idea here is that you're going to accrue too many replies, and consequently, you're simply not going to be able to keep track of who's who, and you're going to end up losing bandwidth, with the end result being that you're simply not able to adequately handle any individual girl. Now, furthermore, if you get too many girls responding, there will simply not be enough time in the week to actually go out with them all. And again, you're going to lose some as they begin to go stale. So this isn't so much of a big deal right now, but it can definitely throw a wrench in things later on down the road. If you live in a less populated area, you might even run the risk of hitting up every girl on the site in your region, and will actually have to wait a couple months for the site to repopulate with new girls. I remember when I first started grinding the site hard with this system, I would send out literally hundreds upon hundreds of messages, and I would actually burn it out. And then I'd actually have to wait a month or two for it to repopulate. But the great thing about this is new users are constantly signing up, so there will always be fresh girls on it, okay? Like I said, the eyes too big for the stomach syndrome, it's a small issue here, but it can become exponentially more significant once you kind of shake them down to the later stages of the funnel. So one way of dealing with this is by employing the favorites function of OkCupid as kind of a standby list. I'll add them to the favorites, and that'll help me avoid the eyes too big for the stomach. So I can hit them up later once I've run, like, say I get about, 10 leads or something, I'll run those through, and then I'll hit up the favorites, okay? So when you do this, some will have quit the site when you go back for it. They'll quit while they're in the wings, but again, that's kind of irrelevant. Now, another thing you can do if you're continually seeing the same girls pop up in your match feed is to actually use a block and hide strategy. So what you're going to do here is you're going to spend a little time going through the matches, and you hide any users that you find unattractive or girls that you've actually sent several messages to without a reply. What this is going to do, it's going to remove them from your queue, and it's going to bring entirely new girls to the forefront. Now, personally, I will rarely hide girls that I actually find attractive because I have had several cases where they didn't respond for months, and then all of a sudden they did out of the blue down the line. Like maybe something in their life changed. Who fucking knows? Who cares? But again, be aware of that. So anyway, that's the gist of the whole searching process. Now, let's actually start messaging girls.